Hello. To our streaming audience, we will begin in 5 minutes. Adults in Richmond, if you can hear me, you should be in here. Good morning. It's great to see everyone. Come on in. So hopefully my dulcet tones will draw people in, or not. So this morning, we are going to talk about the Prison Project. And I'll tell you a little bit about their mission: deeply ingrained, systematic racism, extraordinarily long sentences, no parole or mid-sentence review. These are just some of the factors that contribute to mass incarceration in Illinois. The prison system makes no room for compassion, nor is there recognition within the criminal legal system that people change or grow. And of course, in Judaism, teshuvah, that you can change yourself. Obviously, there's no room for teshuvah. By creating many ways into the prison, but almost no way out, Illinois' criminal legal system has wrought extraordinary moral and fiscal costs for individuals and communities. At the Illinois Prison Project, we fight against regressive policies, racist practices, and a system that treats people as disposable, with a mission focused on hope, compassion, and humanity. Jennifer Sobel, the founder and the director of the Illinois Prison Project. I am not her. Her child is very sick, and she's home with her child. And we talked this morning, and she goes, I have to reschedule. I said, I can't reschedule. I have $300 of lox and bagels here. That's not going to work. And she was always planning to come with Renaldo, and I said, Renaldo, can he come? Please, please. She said, let me ask him. He so graciously said yes, making my, I don't know, week, month, year. Let me tell you a little bit about Renaldo. Renaldo Hudson is an educator, minister, and community organizer, and focuses work on ending perpetual punishment in Illinois. After being sentenced to death row, Hudson worked for 37 years while incarcerated. I'm sorry, I'm crying. While incarcerated in the Illinois Department of Corrections, where he became a leader, educator, and founder. Hudson developed and implemented groundbreaking programs inside the development of corrections, including the prison newspaper, Stateville Speaks, and the Building Block program, a transformational program run by incarcerated people within the Illinois Department of Corrections. Hudson's work and life have been featured in media outlets, I'll be Googling him later, including the BBC, Chicago Tribune, Chicago Magazine, and others. His story and work to create back and mechanisms for the release of incarcerated people is the subject of the documentary Stateville Calling. He was released in September 2020 when Governor Pritzker commuted his life sentence. I said before, we love Governor Pritzker. And he joined IPP as the Director of Education later that year. It's been 5 years, and Renaldo's here to tell us his story. Can you just sit right here.
Yeah?
Yeah, and I'll go fix the camera.
Thank you.
There you go.
Good morning. Y'all look so beautiful. Like, I be telling people, I will go 1,000 miles to have a conversation with one person. So to see all of y'all beautiful faces and you're smiling, because I'm so used to people like, oh, what do you want? What I want is to share the joy that I get to live with, because big hearts chose to come in dark places and shine. And so as the Director of Education for the Illinois Prison Project, I have the pleasure of going around and sharing my story with people, not because I want people to feel sorry for me, because if you notice something, I'm free, right? And so my story being told is a part of my liberation. And the fact that the Illinois Prison Project, through the directions of the most amazing, the most smartest, the most beautiful executive director ever walking the earth, if you ask me, Jennifer Sobel, who was the first lawyer to tell my story rather than attempting to litigate my harm. And so when I talk about my story, I always start and share with people, I am the person responsible for the harm that sent me to prison, but I'm not the harm that I caused. I had the potential, and my life has been a testimony of what a redeemed life looks like. And when we talk about criminal justice reform, you can't only talk about who are the innocent. I don't sit before you as an innocent person. I sit before you as a liberated person who woke up, and forgive me for using this expression in advance, but I'm a person that lived in sewage most of my life. And it was only when someone came along and turned on the light, and I looked and said, hey, wait a minute, that's some fecal matter. Hey, that's not water, that's urine. Why am I living like this? What went wrong? What pieces were missing? And so when you talk about trauma, when you talk about generational trauma, one of the things that continually connects me to all people who struggle is that when you look at the trauma, the harm that has been caused, you can see the potential for change. You can see the potential of hope. And our motto at the Illinois Prison Project is hope inspires hope. So that was my unsolicited introduction, but I'm going to, if you bear with me, and I'm kind of long-winded because I was asked the question like, well, can you talk for an hour? I'm like, y'all haven't met Renaldo. Like, are you serious? Y'all be like, it's time for dinner, dude. You got to go. I'm like, are you sure? I'll be back then. Like, I finished part 2. But I do want to go back and share really quickly. So my name is clearly Renaldo Hudson. Thank you very much, right? And I'm a 60-year-old kid. I went to prison in 1983 and spent 37 years within the walls of the Illinois Department of Corrections. I spent 7 years in the Cook County Jail, 13 years on Illinois' death row, and then another 17 years with life without the possibility of parole. And what I also share with people is that when I was arrested, I was a 19-year-old who couldn't read, who couldn't write, who was a drug addict, who had suffered, so much trauma from sexual abuse to physical abuse to even, and I always say this without shame, I was even shot and left for dead by my brother, who actually shot 7 family members and killed 2. And when I woke up in the hospital to return home to my family, what I discovered was I couldn't go home. And I couldn't go home because I looked so much like my brother that my little cousins who were children, 9, 10, and 11, who he had shot, when I walked in the room, I was a trigger. I didn't understand what that was. This was in the 70s. There were no wraparound services. There were no intervention. There just wasn't. And my family had already been so marinated in abuse and harm and violence that violence was seen as normal. It wasn't seen as problematic. It was, in fact, if you weren't tough, then you wouldn't survive. If you didn't care, because I was, believe it or not, I was a big crier as a kid. I was always a hugger. I consider myself, even to this day, the hug king. Like, I'll hug everyone. Like, come here, give me a hug, right? Because I believe in touch therapy. I believe that when you touch people with your heart, you're forever friends with them, So I share that not to make people sad. I share that to say, look how far we've been able to come. So we've been able, only by grace, to walk through so much trauma that the average person just wouldn't survive it. And so in 1983, I, under the influences of cocaine and PCP, came up with this idea that I would rob this guy and take his money and run away and be happily ever after. I know today it is the most ridiculous thing in the world, but at that moment I was like, I'm gonna be happy, I'm gonna be free, and no one will ever be able to harm me again. What happened was Mr. Folk Peterson lost his life. I lost my life to incarceration. My family lost me completely for 37 years. And I was able to be put in the category of a monster rather than a kid that just went astray, a kid that did a horrible thing. And I always speak of Mr. Peterson with the most respect that I can extend to his memory. And the greatest testimony of redemption or forgiveness and remorse is that every day of my life I live thinking about to keep my mouth consecrated and my hands consecrated to serve, to give people the idea that people can change, people can be better than their worst decision. And you can't do that if you don't have access to resources and people who choose to see you beyond your harm. And so the reason I'm such a supporter and lover, I'm also gainfully employed with the Illinois Prison Project, but I so love Jenny Sobel because this little Jewish lady, right, chose to start an organization to say, I'm going to go and look at people who have been rejected and disrespected. And she started off almost, it's wild to think about it. Jenny was a formal federal public defender who decided that I'm going to take my training and I'm going to start looking at cases because a guy, Anthony Gay, for example, who was in prison, who shouldn't have been in prison. He was a brother that went to prison and had received almost 50 years while in the prison for acting out in isolation, in solitary confinement. He so deteriorated that he would strike out to try to get attention because they had him in solitary confinement. And if you throw a milk carton out of your chuck hole and it hits an officer's foot, that is an aggravated assault. And so he accumulated almost 50 years. Think about that. He was suffering mentally, deteriorating, and in order to be heard, he would cut himself. And when they come to get him to address his injury, he may throw his milk carton out of the chuck hole, or he may resist. And so anyway, this young man just was buried with this amount of time, and Jenny stepped up and represented him and was able to get that time taken away from him. And ultimately, he walked out of prison. And she began to look at the conditions of prisoners in the state of Illinois. And she looked at a document that was labeled the stock. Think about that. If you've ever had access to a farm, you know that stock is usually referred to as animals. And she was appalled. And she didn't just cry about it. She said, I'm going to see what I can do. And she basically started the Illinois Prison Project. And we are now almost 6 years old, right? Have freed over 166 people from incarceration. We have saved the government, the state, millions of dollars, and has taken away almost 2,000 years of incarceration time from people that have been incarcerated. And when I say that, I'm so proud that I was the 23rd person that her hand liberated. And so when I wear the 23, people thought I was trying to represent Michael Jordan. I was like, no, man, this is Jennifer Sobel and the Illinois Prison Project. You know what I'm saying? I'm number 23. And I was so, and continue to be so excited that our organization is functioning from three basic principles or perspectives. We have direct representation, which is our lawyers, Jenny and our legal director, like an amazing. When I tell y'all these people are so smart, when I sit in the meeting with them, I be like, I ain't gonna say nothing. All right? Because they just so smart and they're always thinking about what next. What can we do next? Who can we help next? And that's our direct representation. Then we have a comms and policy department, which is ran by an amazing brother who was a young person who went to prison and ultimately was released as a juvenile person who was just a juvenile when he went to prison. But the amazing thing about Marshawn Allen, is he's also in law school right now. So he's like 2.5 years into becoming a lawyer, which I be looking at him funny. I'm like, little smart dude. But he's amongst one of the most smartest people in the world. And why I'm mentioning him is that our organization isn't just an organization that has this hierarchical power structure. Jenny clearly believed that the voices that should be heard and leading are the.
This is my, I know how to fix this.
Yeah. So y'all still hear me? So the reason I mentioned them, so that's the second leg of our organization. And then the most amazing leg that I love, love, love is the education department. The education department of the Illinois Prison Project is led by the most beautiful person you've ever put eyes on, Renaldo Hudson. And in my department, let me show you how powerful this work is. Jenny saw my strengths, but she also saw my weaknesses. And she built a team around me to help me to be able to do the job that she knew I could do. And so I don't know if y'all can tell, I'm a natural motivational speaker. I just am. I'm amazing at it, right? But I wasn't, and I'm not the most technological, like I'd be like, Google, do it. Like, I don't know. And I struggled, and rather than say, hey, get out of the room, she said, let's see, who can we bring in this room to help you prepare presentations and to be able to go out and speak with people and actually be on the business, be able to say to people, hey, here's what we do, here's why we do it, and this is how you can help us continue to do it. Or why is it important for us, or me specifically, to have the mandate to fight against the dangerous one-sided narrative, which is one of the things I constantly push, that you can't only listen to the aggravating factors around offenses, you also have to learn about the mitigating factors. Aggravating factors are the things of the offense, what happened, how it like when it happened. Mitigation is explaining what led to it and what could have been done differently, and how has time affected this person, after the fact, right? And so, for example, the aggravating factors in the Renaldo Hudson offense is that I took the life of Mr. Folk Peterson. The mitigating factors are Renaldo went from being a functioning illiterate to a Bachelor of Divinity, right? Creating programs, deciding that if the Department of Correction didn't have the ability to put all the guys in the prison in school, I pushed them to turn our day room into classrooms, because I would go from cell to cell talking, and I realized that we had scientists and mathematicians and reading experts, people that understood sociology, psychology, and I'm like, why are they only being let out of the cells to play dominoes? Why are they only let out of the cells? What if we asked them to give us an extra hour in the day room, and we took the people who couldn't read, which I could detect really fast, because when I couldn't read, I was really easily offended. Like, you say, hey, check this out, read this. I'm like, hey, you can't beat me. Because I wanted to hide that shame. And so I'm like, I don't want people to live in shame, because when you live in shame, you're more prone to do stupid things, right? When you are ashamed of who you are, then you're trying to fit in, and you'll hide in the shadows. And in the shadows is where the dark things happen. And so once I figured that out, I'm like, I want to turn the lights on. And I want people to know that they have the chance to be better than their worst decision. So we created programs. We created, like, I'm one of the people responsible for the creation of programs. I wrote the blueprint, but then I realized I couldn't do it by myself. And so I would always say, I'm looking at y'all right now as a perfect example, and I'm like, who is my next partner in the room? Like, who am I going to collaborate with? What skill have you retired with that we can still use and learn how to use it in stretching out the message that we really are one community and that we're the strongest when we stand with each other, lockstep, right? And we're able to have real conversations because you can say, hey, listen, that doesn't work, and I'll tell you why, right? And not feel challenged. And so we practice that as a principle inside. So it was easier for me when I walked out and Jenny asked me, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to keep doing what I was doing. I want to educate the world. I want to go around the world and say to every person that I come into contact with, hey, listen, I know we can change the world. We don't have to only dream about what we want to see. We can start building it. And that doesn't mean that everyone's going to have a Cadillac. And I always tease people, I don't have a Cadillac. I have a Nissan Premium Maximum. Actually, what is that thing called? That car is what is it? All the bells and whistles. Anyway, I just got lost in that. My car is wonderful. But mainly because I had never had access to things that people take for granted. And that's really kind of why I was mentioning that. Now I get to move around, and I don't have to hitchhike. I don't have to, beg people. I can just say, hey, I'll be there. Like when you said, hey, would Renaldo come? I'm like, yeah, because I jumped in my car and got on the, right? And I got on the GPS and say, where is it, right? And this is a beautiful place, but I'll have to tell y'all really quickly. I got a little nervous. I was like, I done went to the grade school. Because when I pulled into the lot, all I saw was mothers and stuff bringing their baby. I said, hey, wait a minute. I am in the wrong place, right? But that made me so happy at the same time because I'm like, man, here's a space that are feeding the youth. Here's a space that I'm going to get to talk to the people. And I'm like, they're not playing, they're living it out. So thank y'all for not just doing it, but showing an example of the work. Y'all feel me? Can everybody hear me? And I promise y'all, I'm going to shut up at some point, but I'm also open to any question, and I really mean that. Don't hesitate, or you cannot easily offend me. I spent 37 years in prison, trust me. The thing I learned was that the only thing that is concrete in the world is concrete, right? Everything else is subject to change. While at the same time, I think it's important to continually share with people, the work we're continuing to do. What's not on my resume, for example, is that I'm also an artist, right? I was actually the artist for the people for the U of Chicago for a year, and my art was on display there over at the university. I also, y'all familiar with the Lyric Opera House, right? My art was on display at the Lyric Opera House. In fact, I'm going to invite you all May the 1st, please check out our website. We will be at the Lyric Opera House, the Illinois Prison Project, sharing a documentary about In Their Hands. And then afterwards, me and Ronnie Castillo, one of the brothers that's featured in the documentary, will be in a conversation with Jennifer Sobel. And we will have a VIP room at the end of it where you'll really be able to, so y'all, I'm going to make sure we get that information to y'all because I would love to see all of y'all there. I think that would be such a testament to y'all commitment to us. It's so cute. I love doing that. But I'm saying that to say, because I really mean it, and I think it's so important that we have activities that people can begin to see the work. So also, some of my art pieces will be on display, and what y'all are getting a real eye in on, I'm actually going to give a couple of pieces away for free from me. I'm going to take and have our development person I'll figure it out, but if you're there, you may be able to walk away with a piece of Renaldo Hudson's art, right? And I do that stuff because I recognize that we have to continually share with people tangible things while we also are talking about those literary things and dealing with administrative stuff and dealing with presentations. How many other places do you think we should be speaking? And who do you know that we should be talking to? I'm always thinking about that. What's the next presentation? What's the next audience? How do we transfer this information to the younger generations, right? And make sure that we're able to talk to them in a way that they're educated about what everybody care about. Because one of the things that I've been fortunate to experience is I had a person that was a death penalty supporter that when I was on death row, he used to always talk about what they call a hawk on crime. You ever hear that expression? And my friend Bill Ryan said to him, "You're saying that because you've never met Renaldo." And this guy, they were having a conversation 30,000 feet in the air on an airplane, and he came to see me. And that was in 1993. It's 2025. He's now one of my surrogate fathers, right? And his whole family has surrounded me and have nurtured me and loved on me because where my biological family was broken and unable to give me what I needed, you know, they do it for me. And that's why I always tell people when we're around, I'm the cutest among them, but they don't look like me. And they be like, what? And if his real children actually are jealous of me because they say he treat me better than he treat his biological kids. And I say, well, y'all got to holler at him about that. And I tease them because I think it's important that we figure out how do we share love, right? I was looking, and when I think about love, I'm like, I really believe the idea that perfect love casts away fear. And when you figure out how to love in a way that's active, it is so much more important because now you're not talking, I love you, like, stop playing, you don't even know me yet, right? But if you love me, your actions, that's the love I'm after. Like the love that made the sister say, hey, you're a guest, I'll get you some coffee. And this coffee is good, thank you. She over there in the corner, like, she gave me a cup of coffee. Like, I just love kindness. And like examples of kindness, it becomes a part of my testimony as I go about. And I tell people, man, I had this experience with kindness. I had to encounter, because that's a part of my job, is to tell stories. But our stories are always true. So I went 13 years on Illinois death row. I witnessed 12 executions during that time on death row. What people don't know is I'm probably one of the few, if not the only person in the country who received 2 executive clemencies. I received my first executive clemency from death to life without the possibility of parole from Governor George Ryan in 2003. But in 2020, Governor J.B. Pritzker, I call him Pritzker the Fixer, right? But Governor Pritzker, and I have to tell y'all this story, bear with me, because it's so, every time I think about it, I get emotional. But in Danville Correctional Center where I was the chaplain clerk. I was the person responsible for setting up all of the services for all the religious groups that are in the prison. Everybody met me. You know, if whatever the service, I was there and I would set up everything. I also was the senior facilitator for the building block program that I established, which is a program in Danville Correctional Center where the incarcerated people have the autonomy to educate, facilitate conversations of education as well as emotional intelligence programs to help people process to how to be a better human being. This one particular day, I was like, I had a really, really bad headache. I didn't want to be bothered. And so I was in the cell and I was trying to keep the light out because my head was hurting and I was resting. I'm like, I'm just hot. The cell houses do not have air conditioning and it was hot. Like, I don't even know if I can explain how hot those prison cells can be. Well, the sergeant came to the cell and said to me, Hudson, the warden wants you. And I'm going to be really candid with y'all. I was like, forget that warden. I got a headache and I ain't studying him. And I rolled back over. I'm like, I'm out of here. And about an hour later, the lieutenant came to the cell and said, Hudson, the warden wants you. I'm like, man, forget you and the warden. I got a headache, man. I'm tired. I need, I'm sick. He said, listen, man, let me put it to you like this. You're going to see the warden one way or the other. You're going to walk or you're going to be cuffed and taken to the warden. I'm like, so she really want to see me, huh? I got up. And so I walked over. She was actually in the gym of the facility. And so I walked over to the gym door with the lieutenant, and the warden said to me, Hudson, you didn't want to come see? I'm like, no, warden, I didn't. And I was going to stay in the bed if I was allowed to. She said, well, we're going to open another wing of the building block. And so just to give y'all a sense, the prison consists of maybe 1,600 people. The building block program had 4 wings. Each wing has 112 people can be on the wing. So we had 4 wings with our program on it, right? And so she was like, I want to create another, I want another wing. I'm like, this could have waited till tomorrow. That was in my head, right? But I recognized I was being voluntold. I wasn't volunteering. And I was like, okay. So she looked at me and she said, you know what? You are having, let's go down to clinical services where the air condition is. I'm like, ah. And so we walked down to the clinical service office, and when we sat in there, it was, first of all, it was, the lights was out, so they had to turn the lights on, and it was so cool. I was like, instantly, my little agitated state changed. So I realized some of my agitation was I was just hot, right? And I was like, thank you, Lord, like this, right? But she did something that was so different. She went over to another desk and started unraveling this phone cord. And then she brought this phone over to the desk that I was sitting at and put it on the desk and picked up the phone and hit a number and said, go for Hudson. I said, go for Hudson. I said, what's up? Well, she said, oh, one of the deputy directors want to speak to you. And so my brain said, oh, they want to try to get some more of my ideas about the building block for some other facility. I said, here they go, like just taking all my stuff. And so I pick up I said, hello? Y'all, when I tell y'all, the sweetest sound that I ever heard was Jennifer Sobel. I instantly knew her voice. She said, Renaldo, Governor Pritzker just granted your executive clemency. You're coming home. I was like, oh my God, what? My headache instantly left, and I did not realize how much weight I had been carrying, because I instantly felt like I could float, I could fly. And I couldn't stop shaking. And the warden hugged me and said to me, ha, 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 we got you. I was like, and she said, man, you deserve this moment. Take it in. And I was like, man, they heard my story. Governor Pritzker stepped up and chose to love me beyond my worst decision, and he saw my potential. And he listened to the words that were written on the pages by this lawyer who chose to love people that people had condemned. And this is why I never hesitate when Jenny called me and say, hey, would you never have to ask me, would I? Because I'm now one of the privileged people in this world. I now have the responsibility lovingly to share with people the potential of kindness, the potential of reaching the governor, right? I always I never hesitate when I hear things about Governor Pritzker and I'm there. I'll let them know I know a different governor. I know a person. I'm going to tell y'all another quick story. Y'all bear with me. Right before my executive clemency was granted, there was another person on the wing with me. And this person used to come to me, I'm not exaggerating, this is a true story, and they would say, Renaldo, Governor Pritzker has this purple pen with these gold tips, and the ink always says yes when he pull it out. I was like, okay, right? Every day for 30 days, this friend of mine would say, Renaldo, like what? Tay-Tay? Governor Pritzker has this purple pen with these gold tips, and when he bring it out, it always says yes. And I was like, okay, if that's what's working for you, okay. 30 days, I promise y'all, we sitting in the laundry room, me and this person, and the intercom could call this person to the bubble, and they came back shaking. And I said, what's wrong, Tay-Tay? Governor Pritzker just granted my clemency. I said, really? And they was shaking, and they had to go and pack their stuff, and they left me. And so when I went to the cell, I was laying in the bunk, and so one of my friends came to the chuck hole. He said, "What's going on?" I said, "Governor Pritzker got this purple pen, and it's got these gold tips, and every time he pull it out, it says yes." And what people don't know about my story, y'all, is I started saying that every day to my friend. And then I gave away everything in my cell. I gave everything away. And everybody was like, uh-oh, the time that finally got to the old man. And I would repeat this story. Governor Pritzker got this purple pen with the gold tips, and when he pull it out, it says yes. Within 30 days is when that story happened for me. And so I got to tell this story in person to Governor Pritzker. And this was right at his re-election, when he was running for office again. And I got to hug him and say, thank you, man, for looking at me and seeing all of my brokenness and still saying, but there's something in you that's worth investing in. Because that's what I took, and that's what I take that him granting my executive clemency said. I will invest my name in you. And from that day to this day, I've been doing this work. From that day to this day, I never hesitate to remind people when they try to say something about my governor. I'm like, that's my governor. When y'all get through talking, right? And all he has to do is call me and I'll be there. Because I know what it feels like to be given a second chance. And our organization, not only do I go out and speak, we also create toolkits. So we have toolkits to help people figure out how to file for an executive clemency. Jenny Sobel also played a major role in what people aren't aware of is the Joe Coleman Medical Release Act was facilitated. The legislative work of it was written by our wonderful Jennifer Sobel. And it is now a mechanism that is being implemented for people who are dying, who are in hospice, and they're able to file this petition and be released into the bosom, to the comfort of their families, rather than dying in a cell. And so when you think about how much of a footprint, as much as I'm the pretty one in the group, like when I'm in the room with Jennifer Sobel, y'all, and I really wish she was here, because we make a heck of a duo when we're talking together, but I also am honored that she trusts me to speak on behalf of our organization and to always remember to invite people in, to say, come be with us, come see the work we're doing. If you don't believe what I'm saying out of my mouth, go to our website, come to our office, come check us out, follow us, look at the cases and the lives that are being changed. Y'all hear me? Y'all have any questions? Yes.
Okay, hold up.
Thank you for telling your story. I wonder, do you go into high-risk areas and talk to elementary and secondary age school kids? And if you do, are they receptive to hearing your story?
Yes, I go everywhere. And absolutely, one of the things that, for example, not only do I do that, I also go into the facilities where juvenile people are incarcerated, and I share my story with them, because one of the things that has happened is that young people have been conditioned to believe they're the only one, and you don't understand, and you have to be perfect. And so the fact that I share myself vulnerably, I show all my brokenness, I don't just celebrate all this wonderful stuff I do. I tell them I was that person that couldn't read. I was that kid that was running around acting like you. And so you can see something different. So I go any and everywhere I can go, and I work as the director of education. I get to partner with community groups that does everyday violence prevention. And so I'm actually in a class with one of the top leaders of violence prevention in the city of Chicago, and we collaborate on a regular basis on who we're going to go talk to. And they have, even people don't realize this, and this is why it's important even to figure out how do we better work with law enforcement. Like, I talked to one of the commanders of the Chicago Police Department, and they have people that like, these are the hot boys, which I'll spend time with them before we end up locking them up. And so I absolutely, every chance I get, when it's authorized, I'll never go in a space without being invited there first, though.
Mr. Hudson, first of all, thank you very much for being here this morning and
You're
for
welcome.
educating us as to the Illinois Prison Project. As you know, the population in the prisons is huge. So how does the IPP go about selecting those to represent as they chose you? How do you pick amongst the thousands of people that are incarcerated?
Listen, I love that question. First of all, we actually have a legal director, and they actually have a process where we specifically look at not the person, but the case. And so there is a process, but there's also let's go for it. Like, it's not just you have to fit this certain category, but that is a part of the process as well. For example, one of the campaigns, the Illinois Prison Project, probably the most successful was the 3 Strikes campaign. So every person in the Illinois Department of Corrections that was in prison for 3 strikes with life without the possibility of parole were people that our organization filed executive clemency for, right? We are representing many of the young people under the youth parole bill that people are not aware that there's a youth parole bill that was passed that is law, and it took a few years, and now those young men or people that were kids are now eligible for parole, and they didn't have lawyers. So we take on a lot of those cases. We have the Women and Survivors League. I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier. We have a director of the Women and Survivors leg of our organization that deals with women that are in prison for life for domestic violence, for fighting off their attackers. I mean, just horrible circumstances that just get marginalized. And those campaigns to get those cases out are prioritized. But my case, to be really transparent, didn't fit into the category of the cases that Jenny would originally take. But because Jenny was building the organization, she actually reached out to a friend of mine named Bill Ryan to help her get in the network of Illinois. And Bill Ryan said, I will absolutely connect you to these spaces, but you got to take Ronaldo's case. And she was like, are you crazy? Like, do you know how heavy of a lift that is? How you can't, I was already granted clemency by a governor for a crime I committed. Do you know that what the odds are of being given a second executive clemency? Like, I'm like the lottery, like I should play. It's just so, we do both. We have a system, but we also we evaluate every case to come across our organization for the potential of helping them. But what we do for the people we can help, I'm also, in my department of education, we have what we call community navigators. And we've created self-help kits. And so for people who can't have an attorney, we actually will send them the toolkit that is a step-by-step process. We also have over 100 community navigators that we train regularly from Zoom through our department, where I have 2 community navigators that I directly supervise, and they do trainings annually with 6 prisons at a time. And we also, so all of our toolkits are things that we're using to help people, like, okay, we can't represent you directly, but here's how you can help yourself, right? I hope that answers the question.
Budget, I'm curious where the funds come to for all the employed people.
I'm sorry.
As far as the budget is.
Oh.
The Illinois Prison Project?
Right.
At the Illinois Prison Project.
Yes, well, grants, clearly. Jenny also writes, grants, and the kindness of people. Like, as y'all know, right now, funds are being stripped, but we haven't closed our doors because people believe in the work we're doing. And so we also have what we call is Team Hope, right? I'm always thinking about how do you have or ask people to help you if you're not being transparent. And so everything we do is transparent. Like, I never hesitate to ask people, like anybody that know me know, I say, cars don't move without gas, movements don't move without cash. Shake yourself, because even a dollar is used wisely. I know every dollar that is donated to the Illinois Prison Project is a dollar that goes toward direct representation of someone that is incarcerated. But we do take care of our staff because you have to have quality people to do quality work. And so personal donations, team, like we always are pushing. We just started our Team Hope, which is maybe one of y'all might even want to be a new sponsor, and join the team. Because everybody can't do this work, but you can do little work. And even $5 make a difference, in my opinion. Did that answer your question? Thank you.
Okay, I'm just curious, how many cases are on review right now, sitting there to be reviewed? And how many cases before our newly elected president came into office are going to be looking to be reviewed?
For executive clemency or?
For executive clemency.
Well, I don't know the exact numbers, but I could get those numbers and send it to you so we can make sure you have that. I do know that people sometimes confuse the federal government executive power versus the governor. Governor Pritzker is over every person in a state prison. President Trump cannot pardon or deny anybody in the state prisons, period, right? But he is over everyone in federal facilities. So we know that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of cases pending generally. But I'll check in with Jenny and have those numbers specifically shared.
Do you know how many people that Pritzker has pardoned, executive pardoned, and how many more are on his schedule?
That vary from year to year. Like the year that I was released, I think in 2020 was its highest. I think it's really been slowed, and I think a lot of it has just have to do with when when offenses happen, when stuff happen, it slows down. People become angry, fear mongering, and like we also have to be mindful. Like if people become frightened, then the person at the top of the food chain like tighten up. But I think Governor Pritzker, if I'm accurate, and I can definitely double check those numbers, I know for our organization, we probably have the highest number of clemencies granted than any other organization in the state. But I'll also get those actual numbers for you.
We're very lucky. Our school does need to come back in. I did say to Renaldo, we can move into the lounge and continue the conversation. Please know Macomb will be sending IPP a donation. And we thank you so much. Round of applause. And you represented IPP amazing, and I'm going to tell Jennifer all about it. We look forward to meeting her in the future, and thank you everyone for coming out. Next week we're virtual, and it's Musar, Jewish values and on grief and grieving, and Ariel, she has a long last name, but she's coming to us from the East Coast, and it should be very interesting. It's good to see everyone.
Hey, can I ask one quick question for everybody? Can we get one big picture? Can I have a picture with you all?
I love that.
Yeah, right. Because Jenny always tell me like, hey, like give us a picture so we can say who are we loving and who's loving us. Thank you, brother. Absolutely. I'm not leaving till they put me out. So if anybody have any questions, I'll move in there with you. Come on, beautiful. Come on.
Okay. You can sit on my lap.
We have a partner organization. But I tell you what, we just got a guy home 2 days ago, and I called him this morning and had a conversation with him about helping him transition. Because I call it the thawing out series, like the thawing out phase of after long incarceration. There's a lot of stuff that does to it. And so it's almost like being put in a time capsule and then being frozen. And then all of a sudden it's just open and they say go be free. So we actually do work closely, but we don't do the direct work of reentry. But we work closely with the organization that does it.
There's a fellow on the south side of Milwaukee who I've met. I want to say Leonard Lewis. I don't know, is that?
I know the number.
Okay. If I'm listening to this, and that's more the getting them back on the streets, the rehabilitation, and keeping them out in the first place. And I'm sitting there thinking, these two guys need to know each other. And I can track them